I'm Tammy Kolda, an applied mathematician, and this is Unlocking LaTeX Graphics. On this channel, I present tutorials on using TXT and PGFPLOTS. The videos on this channel are based on my book, Unlocking LaTeX Graphics, as well as some bonus materials. Today's episode comes from a viewer question about plotting with dates on the x-axis. We will plot daily high temperatures for 3 U.S. cities from June through December of 2025. First, I'll show you a manual way to plot the data without being smart about dates. Then I'll show you how to use the PGF dateplot library to handle the dates directly. Let's get started. Here's the document setup. I'm setting a 1-inch margin with the geometry package so that our graphic fits nicely on the page. I'm using parskip to remove indentation at the start of each paragraph and hyperref to link the author name to this YouTube channel. The key package is PGFPLOTS. I'm also loading PGFPLOTS table, which lets me read the data file just once and reuse it over and over again. The star of today's show is the dateplot library, which I load with use PGFPLOTS library. This is what will enable PGFPLOTS to understand calendar dates. I'll explain when this comes into play later. Via PGFPLOTS set, I set the compatibility to version 1.18. I also specify scale only axis, which means that the width and height I specify for my graphic will refer to the axes themselves rather than the whole figure, including space set aside for the labels. Let me flash up on the screen the data file first. The file is comma separated. The first column is the date in what is called ISO A601 format. That means we have a 4-digit year, dash a 2-digit month, dash a 2-digit day. And the next 3 columns are the daily high temperatures in Fahrenheit for San Diego, Denver, and Boston. The date column is the problem because standard PGFPLOTS does not understand dates. I'm first going to show you how to plot this without using the dateplot library, sort of a workaround. So what I have here is I've just pasted a plot and we'll go through it. The command PGFPLOTS table reads the data file. I use the call sep equals comma option because this is a comma separated file. And then I'm storing that table into a macro named high temps. I covered reading data files in an earlier episode that I'll link in the show notes. Then I have my TXT picture and PGFPLOTS axis environment inside of that. For my plot, I do some general setup. I'm setting the width to 5.5 inches and the height to 4 inches. I set up the legend entries corresponding to the 3 add plot commands down below. I give a title, an X label, and a Y label. I turn on major grid. I also muck with the plot commands to make the markers be drawn thicker. Because I happen to already know the range, I set the ymin and ymax to be 15 to 105. I'm also rotating the x-axis tick labels to 45 degrees, which will be useful when we later plot them as dates because those are kind of big. The important line here is that the key to being able to plot this data without using the dateplot library is using a special way of setting the x values. Since we know these are simple subsequent dates, I can just use the x values 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. To do this, I use an expression for the x values. So that's what this table /x_expr is saying. It's saying use the coord index plus 1. So the coord index is the row number counting from 0, and adding 1 makes my numbering start at 1. So running from June 1st to December 31st equates to x values 1 to 214. And then last but not least, I have the 3 add plot commands that actually add the plots for our 3 cities, San Diego in cyan, Denver in magenta, and Boston in orange. I also give each a different marker shape so that they are distinguishable even in black and white. When I compile, we see all 3 cities get plotted. If you look at the x-axis, right now the default xtick distance is 20. It doesn't really make sense for dates. We probably want something that's a nice multiple of week. So let me make the first change, which is to change the x distance to 14. And when I recompile that, now we have marks every 14 days or every 2 weeks. I'll link the episode on setting tick options in the show notes. Let me get rid of the extra space on the x-axis by setting xmin and xmax to match the data. So I'm setting this from 1 to 214, and then when I recompile that, then we have no extra white space on either side. The main problem here is that these days are not labeled as dates, and we'll see how to fix that soon. Now, let's say we wanted ticks on the first of each month. Well, I have to actually figure out what those are. So June 1st is day 1. July 1st is day 31, since June has 30 days. August 1st is day 62, and so on through December 1st, which is day 184. I'll replace my xtick distance line with manually set xticks and then recompile. And now my ticks are landing on the first day of each month, but the labels are still those bare day numbers. So the last thing I'll do to get the dates is I'll actually write out the date labels myself using xticklabels. So I set that option, recompile, and now I have those labeled as dates. This looks great, but I would be in trouble if I wanted to change the date range, tick spacing, or labels because I'd have to redo everything by hand. That's where the dateplot library comes in. It makes things much easier if your dates are in a format that it can read. Let me show you how to do this using the dateplot library. Now remember, you have to have use PGFPLOTS library dateplot up at the top before you can do that. Then I'm going to come down here and get rid of all the stuff we had before. Instead, I'm just going to put dates coordinates in equals x. When I recompile that, now we see that we have dates on our x-axis automatically. I will stress that the dates have to be in the ISO 8601 format, which means a 4-digit year, a dash, a 2-digit month, a dash, and a 2-digit day. You could also have times, and if you're interested in that, let me know in the comments and I'll try and do another episode on that. This one line tells PGFPLOTS that the X column calendar dates are in ISO 8601 format. I didn't specify what the X column is, and so it goes to the default, which is the first column. The ISO 8601 format is the only format that PGFPLOTS understands. So if your data is in a different format, you'll have to convert it first. Now, PGFPLOTS automatically selected the xtick spacing, which was not too bad. It's every 3 weeks. I could again choose a date range of every 14 days, and you'll see that this works just fine. Remember, before we didn't have the dates when we did this, we just had numbers. We can also specify xmin and xmax using dates as well, which I think is pretty nifty. So I'll put my start date as June 1st and my end date as December 31st. Although the input format is fixed in this ISO 8601 style, we can actually change how it looks in the outputs. So I can say xticklabel. Notice it's singular, not plural. So this is telling how to format the label. And then I can use some special commands. So I'm going to say take the month, which is a macro that's automatically defined because I'm using the date format. And this PGF calendar month short name turns it into a 3-letter name. And likewise, I'll print the day using PGF math print number with this thing called int detect. If I didn't use that, if I just did the day as it is, it would have a 0 in front of it, which maybe you want. But if you wanted to get rid of that 0, use int detect. I also added a period and a slash and at after it so that it would put a period after the month name, but not so much space after the period like it's the end of a sentence. I have another episode on number formatting that I'll link in the show notes. I didn't use it here, but there is also a year tag when you have your data going over multiple years. Now, if I just want ticks on the first of each month, I can do something similar to what I did before and just give the list of xticks that I want. There's no easy way to say just the first of every month. When I compile, the xticks land on the first of the month, and it's using the formatting that I had already specified with xticklabel. I hope you enjoyed today's episode on plotting time series data with dates in PGFPLOTS. I showed a very manual way to do it that can be useful if your data is not in the right format or you have something else going on. But the better way when you have dates is to use the dateplot library. Then PGFPLOTS can read the date coordinates directly. Setting the range, ticks, and labels is much more straightforward. Thanks very much to @RobertLove2168 who asked about this topic. If anyone wants a video on time series with more refined time series data, including hours and minutes, please let me know in the comments. I include a link to the overleaf document I created today in the show notes. If you found this helpful or interesting, please click like or subscribe. If you have TXIE or PGFPLOTS questions, please post them in the comments. If you want to learn more, I have a bunch of other videos. Please check them out. I also have a book, Unlocking LaTeX Graphics, available for purchase at major book retailers. Thanks for watching.